Okay, welcome to episode 20 of the Sean McGinnis podcast. And today we have Eoin Lacey, someone I've looked up to for many years. Now, and I know you're modest, so I'll give you a little introduction. Eoin's a world-class educator, also has the largest chain personal training gyms in Ireland or Europe. What's the class though?
Europe, I suppose, yeah.
Europe as well, yeah. Deals with executive sports people, anyone that can afford them, and anyone who wants to become the best and healthiest version of themselves. And I left out there.
No, I'll take that on the chin. Thanks for that.
Okay, so a few episodes ago, I told a story about the time that I thought my life flashed before my eyes, and I thought I was having a heart attack. But obviously, eventually turned out to be palpitations and anxiety attack, and that was me after months of PT life, like doing lots of sessions, drinking lots of coffee, lots of HIIT sessions, lack of sleep. And only a few years later, I came about the topic of obviously high stress, high cortisol, and burnout. So, what's your kind of experience with clients and burnout? Do you describe it as that? Do you describe it as high cortisol? What are some of the symptoms you see with people?
Okay, so it's funny you say something there in the introduction. Anyone that can afford, when people are burnt out and people are motivated from a health point of view, they'll pay any money to see somebody. But when it comes to a burnout, there's a few simple signs that you can tell whether somebody's burnt out or not. The first one is cortisol gets a bad rap. People slay cortisol too much, in my opinion. If you had a sore elbow or a sore shoulder and you went to a doctor, they'd probably inject you with cortisone. And cortisone is a derivative of cortisol. So cortisone and cortisol have pivotal roles in life to get you up out of bed, to get you motivated, to get you active, to get you make you train. It's the chronic cortisol exposure that causes the major issues. So what happens, and I'll try to summarize this in as simple way as I can, there's a process called the CAR. And the CAR stands for the cortisol awakening response. And I like to explain to my clients, it's like when you learn how to drive a car, you learn how much revs to give and how to come off the clutch. So there's that little bit of a rev. Every morning we rev our cortisol up, and then it's for the whole day it's starting to come back down again. But some people, when they wake up in the morning, they don't have any rev. They need coffee for a rev, or I actually, and this is going to sound funny, I have executive clients that will do lines of coke in the morning to get themselves through the job when they come in. So people are using these crutches to get the cortisol up in the morning. But the problem is you're kicking a dead dog there. You're doing the best thing you can to get your cortisol up, but then you're dragging your ass for the whole day. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone, as we know. We need it, but chronically elevating it and chronically forcing it to be elevated in the morning causes your secondary hormones, like your adrenaline and noradrenaline, to be elevated too. People start losing muscle mass, their mood, their irritability changes, their resilience, their stress, their libido, their weight gain. And it's funny, our body, when our adrenal glands, we have adrenal glands that are located above our kidneys, and they make the majority of our cortisol. But we make two hormones. We make cortisol and cortisone, and the majority of it goes towards cortisone, and some states cortisol. Now, I like to think of it like money. So imagine your adrenal glands are making money. Some of it is staying in euros, and just because you're in Australia, some of it's going to Australian dollars. Now, we have a place in our body that we can convert Australian dollars back to euro, and that would be the Bureau de Change or whatever it is, money exchange. But your fat tissue, your visceral adipose tissue, has the enzymatic capabilities of reverting cortisone back to cortisol to try to keep you alive. And what the body is always doing, no matter in any facet of health or disease, the body is trying to keep you alive now. It doesn't care that your bicep was 18 inches, now it's down to 16. It doesn't care that you put weight on your belly. It doesn't care that you haven't thought about sex in 10 years. It doesn't care that you can't go for a walk, you have no energy. All it cares about is keeping you alive now. So when people, in my opinion, when people come to see me, they're already past that point of burnout. They're so demotivated. Now, maybe something else is happening. Like, if I stress you out, it might affect your anxiety or panic attacks or whatever it may be. I stress a female out, she might miss her cycle. She might not ovulate. You might stress somebody else out, they get dysbiosis or leaky gut, or they don't go to the bathroom, or they go too often. So stress can manifest in many different ways, but the telltale signs are very evident. The second thing I would look at is not only the cortisol awakening response in the morning, but it's the energy. So if you plugged your mobile phone in last night to get charged and you woke up in the morning and your mobile phone was at 50%, you'd be like going, I'm getting a new phone or I'm getting a new charger. But for some reason, us gobshites think that we can wake up at 30 or 40% every single morning. Sure, it's grand. Sure, it's grand. It's not grand. It's not okay. And this is a habitual thing where people feel like they can just stay up later, eat less food, do less training, or even in some cases do too much training and think it's okay. It's not. It's eroding the body. So how well you recharge your batteries, how well you can bounce back from activities and from stress is a sign of your hormonal resilience. And a lot of times it's people have been empty the bank account and not making any lodgements, in my opinion. And trainers, oh my God, talk about hypocrites. And I'm putting myself in that boat as well. Oh yeah, I'll tell people to do this and do this, but I'll stay up online talking to clients from Hong Kong last night, or I'll get up early and then I'll get a training session in before a client, or I'll do 4 clients in a row and then skip a meal and have a protein shake. No, I've been there, done that. But in the past, you would just do that. You just suck it up and do it. You're not in your head because you know exactly what it's like. So it's like, but every job, whether it be banking or finance or building or whatever it is, people fall into a rush of doing more work, skipping food, not looking after themselves. And then unfortunately, people only start to take their health seriously when something becomes a problem. Like your leg has to fall off before you go to the doctor. Like, you know, it's as I have a whack of my coffee.
So you're kind of saying people go to see you when they're at that end stage of burnout, when everything's just gone to shit. But I think you've heard you say before where people be under chronically high cortisol and they just grasp that as normal, as a normal thing. So what are some of the stages where someone is on the way to that, like you've mentioned, low libido, or it might show up in different ways, energy slumps?
Yeah, so the big thing is energy is a really poor indicator, because energy is one of those things that is associated with so many different diseases. But when it comes to burnout, one of the things I say to people is, if you do a low carb diet or you do a certain training and the body's not responding to it, that's a sign that the body's changed and it's not resilient enough. If you're not getting restorative sleep and you're not waking up above 80% in the morning, well then that's, if you're taking, like my wife's a sleep queen, but she would sleep 10 hours and be refreshed. She could sleep 7 hours and feel refreshed. We have clients that need 12 hours in bed or 10 hours in bed and they just get by. So how well you recharge your batteries, how well you bounce back from training, what your energy like is in the first 60 minutes upon waking are all early warning signs that the adrenals may be compromised in some way. Now, having said that, I like to tell people there's a few different things you can do to do lodgements into your health bank account. We need the correct macronutrients, we need the correct micronutrients, we need the correct amount of air, the correct amount of water, and ideal sleep. And these are the only 5 things, bar spirituality or religion, which I don't talk about, that's not my field. But these 5 things are the only things that we can do from a metabolic, from a physiological point of view, to put health into our body. The first thing that happens when someone gets stressed out, skip meals. The next thing they do is they skip the training. Then they stay up too late or get up early. Then they don't drink enough water. So they're already not doing enough of the simple things, you know?
Yeah, that's brilliant. And are you putting metrics on that? Because obviously, say as a younger trainer, sometimes it's hard to tell a CEO executive that you're trained as 20 years old, oh, you just need to chill out when you're living at home with your parents. So what things and metrics are you giving to these people? Are you doing blood tests? What are the metrics to show them, to put it in a number format that they can use and measure the rate of progress?
Okay, so you can go very simple to very sophisticated. So the simplest way of assessing people is through a food diary. The most simplest way, so you assess their sleep, excuse me, how often they train, their energy levels. And there's a lot of research done on people don't like filling in forms. They just don't. So the shorter the form is, the better. Smiley faces or emojis for feelings are much better than saying, how do you feel? Feel grand. Of course you feel grand. If you give someone a selection of 6 faces, they might pick it. The same with energy levels, they'll pick their energy levels. How often they've gone to the bathroom, how well they've trained, all on the diary is probably the simplest and easiest way to correct things. And I honestly find that when it comes to executives, they're more in tune with numbers. They're like, well, hang on a second, Owen, I'm training with you, I'm not losing weight. I'm like, well, okay, Well, what else are you not doing? So if you train with me 5 days a week, which will cost a lot of money, if you train with any trainer 5 days a week, it costs a lot of money, but that only represents 2.9% of the week. So are you telling me as an executive that you're going to put 2.9% of the work in, but you want 100% of the return? Well, you can see that the limiting factor isn't your training sessions. It's that you don't eat, you don't go to bed on time, you get up too early, you're drinking too much alcohol, you're smoking too much weed, or whatever it may be. So we need to fix it. So I think a food diary is a very quick and simple way of doing it. And I talk a lot about how to assess people's food diaries on seminars. Next thing I would do is I would use some sort of HRV. Are you familiar with HRV?
Yeah.
So a lot of different ways you can assess HRV. I actually have a Whoop band at the moment. One of my clients, he's a sports agent, and he flies all over the place. And I said, how are you flying all over the place with the quarantine? It's different when you have your own plane. Anyway, so so I see his sleep, I see his training, I see his HRV. You can also use an Oura ring. They're quite good. Oura rings are very good. They can give you an insight into what's going on. And then I would do a standard blood chemistry test. A blood chemistry test will really give you an insight into what's going on. And for the guys out there, probably the two most important factors to look at when it comes to adrenals, I would look at sodium and I would look at potassium. And because sodium and potassium, they regulate what fluid is outside the cell and what fluid is inside the cell. And that transportation and that fluid allows things to go in and out. So it really dictates your metabolic function. And then if the gold standard for me is a test called the Dutch test. So the Dutch test is a dry urine test of complete hormones. So when you're testing hormones in particular, it's like taking a picture of the Grand Prix and expecting to know who's going to win. It's just a snapshot. So a blood test isn't the be-all and end-all when it comes to endocrinology and assessing lifestyle and circadian rhythms of hormones. Where Dutch tests, you spit in a tube and you weigh in a piece of paper in the morning. You spit in the piece of paper 2 more times within the first hour, and then there's a few more tests throughout the day. So we see a whole list. So what I say to my clients is, imagine that I was to ask you now, how much money have you got in your pocket? Well, I have no money in my pocket. No one takes cash over here anymore. Cash is gone. Cash used to be king. It's gone now. So now what happens is, if I was to ask an executive what money they got in their pocket, that doesn't reflect their salary and it doesn't reflect their bills. When you get a urine test of hormones, you get what they have available, they're free. You get 2, what they metabolize, and I use that as the receipts, what they've spent their money on. And then you have the overall production. So it's like seeing someone's salary, what they've spent it on, and what they've got left over. But just taking a snapshot of a saliva only or blood only, it's missing out the link, you know? Like you could be making, your adrenals could be working really hard, but converting it all to Australian dollars, to cortisone and not the cortisol. You could have, enzyme dysfunction or genetic polymorphisms in your steroidogenic pathways that you need to address. And that's quite common. Actually, before I got onto you, I was listening to a friend of mine. He's based in Wellington, and he sends patients to me on a regular basis. Like burnout is it's global. It's not just in any one field. And obviously, because we're in the fitness field and training field, we see people constantly like that. But I see it everywhere I go. I see it in restaurants. I see it in banks. I see it all over the place. I once did this consultation, and you may have heard this story before, so if you have, just ignore it. But I was in Azerbaijan doing a job, and the girl, the performance director who brought me over, asked me to do this consultation with the vice president of the Azerbaijan bank, biggest bank in Azerbaijan. I was like, oh my God. So I'm meeting this guy, and I said, okay, well, what can I help you with? He says, oh, have you ever cooked a frog? I was like, no, I've never cooked a frog. I don't know what you think we cook in Ireland, but I don't cook frogs. He says, how you cook a frog is you get a frog, you put it into cold water, and then you gradually heat the cold water up very slowly until he boils and kills himself. He won't jump out. He says, that's what I feel like my life is like in the banking world. I took it on as a young man. I was very good. I didn't have a wife or kids then. And now I'm doing 16, 18 hours days, 7 days a week all the time. Stress just grows. And because I'm so used to it, I just put up with it, but it's killing me. So I think a lot of people can relate to that situation. You take another client on, and you squeeze another session in, you take a football team on, or I'll just do a few hours on a Saturday and Sunday morning. And then all of a sudden you're catching up and doing emails and texts to clients. So a lot of people can relate to the increasing stress, and people just suck it up. They just do more. you know, and they don't do any more rest. So the more output you put in, the more input you should put in. But for some reason, people feel they can fix it themselves, that they'll be grand, they can work all week and then go smash a few points or beers or whatever the weekend and think they'll be brand new the next day. You can when you're 21, but not anymore. And if you want to, and I like to relate it to athletes. I've got a lot of high-profile athletes that come to me, and they already have nutritionists and coaches and psychologists and so on, but nobody talks on a one-to-one basis. So if you want to be a peak performer in any job whatsoever, you need to look after yourself. And it's too little too late to wait till something, you know, is going wrong before you address it. We have it on the gym wall. Take your health seriously or take it somewhere else. So you only have, like if I said to you, you only have one car ever. You're only going to have one car in your life ever. You're going to get it in Ireland. You're going to bring it over to Sydney. You're going to rally it around. You take care of that car. Do you know that's the only car you're ever going to have? For some reason, we're like going, that's grand. I'll get surgery on this. And, you know, it's okay. This doesn't work. My skin is breaking out. And I can't sleep. My hair's falling out. It's not okay. But people need to be aware of that and take onus of their own health.
Brilliant. And a few of the symptoms outside of someone going and getting their hormones checked, such as you said, all right, you should be fresh in the morning, and I've heard you say before, you should be waking up without an alarm clock. And obviously we're in Ireland, and you'll hear people, that's unheard of. You need an alarm clock, you need 10 gallons of coffee, and you might wake up for a few hours after, then someone says, you know what, I'm just not a morning person. Is some of the stuff, like, what is normal? Because I don't think people understand what is a normal circadian rhythm or the normal way to function on a daily basis.
This is funny. So I had a guy in here yesterday. He's from Wexford, very nice guy, and we're chatting about chronotyping. And certain people, it's been shown that certain people are not necessarily morning people, and some people are more energetic at night time. But the variation is maximum 3 hours. Maximum 3 hours. And I say to people all the time, can you see in the dark? If you can see in the dark, you're a nocturnal person. If you can't see in the dark, you're not. So some people don't get going till the morning time. So when you flew over there, I'm sure there was a few days where you were feeling a little bit crap because all your circadian clocks were getting in tune. And we have two types of clocks. You have central clocks, and then we've got peripheral clocks. So your central nervous system, your hormonal system, your muscular system, your pancreas, your liver, they all have rhythms. And the most important thing is to get that rhythm right in the morning. But waking up without an alarm clock means that your body has gone through its restorative sleep and it's coming into the light phase of sleep, and it'll wake you up. If you're constantly being pulled out of deep sleep by an alarm clock, that's your body not in tune. Not in tune. I like to say to clients, like, you've trillions of cells in your body. And imagine every single cell in your body has a factory. And that factory makes something. It makes skin, it makes hair, it makes bone, it makes something. But all the workers need to be there on time. When the door's open, to go in and do their job. You don't start blowing the whistle and guys get out of the bed and then turn up. You want the guys there on site. So when you wake up in the morning and you're ready to go, it means that your metabolism, your physiology, your hormones are like, okay, let's do this. Rather than going, oh, Jesus, what's going on? Oh, come on, Billy, come on, Bob, let's get going. It's too little, too late. It's like I say, you know, starting a race and you blow the whistle just to get the guys on the line. No, it's not going to work. You need everything to be in its place first. And circadian clock system dysfunction is rampant. I mean, rampant. I have so many clients that they get home at night time, and there's a model called the hypervigilant model by a researcher called Gilmartin, Professor Gilmartin. And what he's done most of his research on in the army and in the military, where people are on. They're on all the time. Like military people are on all the time. They can't switch off. And what happens is you get an executive coming to you. They're big business, big decisions, a lot of targets, a lot of driven, a lot of staff to look after, and they're on all the time. And then they come home, and people think they come home and they chill out. They don't just switch off and chill out. They actually plummet much lower. And the problem is when they're down here feeling crappy, that's when they watch television, they're like going, their wife comes in or husband comes in and says, hey, and they're like going, I'm so disengaged, I'm so disinterested. And then your wife starts telling you about the Kardashians or some other trivial shite like that, and you're like going, I have not interested in it. I'm not picking on my wife there. But what I'm saying is when people are at a high level of performance and then they switch off, they don't come back down to a normal engaging level like we are now. They go lower. And that's when they stay up late on the couch, they're flicking through the television and realize, what was I even watching? That's when they smoke a joint. That's when they drink too much whiskey or whatever it is. And then they're eating into their sleep, and then the whole cycle starts again. So for me, I like to identify if someone has a hypervigilant model and what we can do to get them up. Meditation is a great one. Cold showers is a great one. Activity is another. I know the last thing you want to do is go for a walk, but it's been shown a 20-minute walk after a meal can really bring down the inflammation, can off-gas the sugars, and really get the mitochondria working correctly before you go to bed. So a multitude of things that you can do. But one more sign that I didn't say is if you're sitting down and you stand up, and you stand up, not necessarily really fast, but you stand up and you get a little bit dizzy. That's called orthostatic hypotension. And what happens is your adrenal glands, they have cortisol and cortisone and DHEA and aldosterone and so on, but they have two neurotransmitters, adrenaline and noradrenaline. And they get released and they get stimulated by nerves. They get released very, very fast. So they're technically neurotransmitters. They're not really hormones. But when you stand up, adrenaline will narrow down your arteries, so your blood pressure can stabilize. If you stand up and you get a bit dizzy, it's an indication that it could be an adrenal issue. It could also be a blood sugar issue as well and blood pressure issue, but a lot of times it can be down to people being, their adrenal glands are already shot. So that's another warning sign. Standing up feeling dizzy, constantly craving salt is another one. Not being energetic within the first hour, not being able to replenish their batteries after exercise, and sore joints, just sore joints all over, no particular joint pain for any, that you've banged it. The fact that it's just all over joint pain.
Brilliant. And then we have that same person who can't wake up in the morning without an alarm clock, needs 10 gallons of coffee, hypervigilant that night. And then we go Friday, Saturday night, and then there's a few drinks, and then they're not going to bed till 2 and sleeping in till 11 or 12. Now, you've talked about before about social jet lag, which again, most people aren't aware of at all. How does that kind of play into that whole system?
Well, this is the thing, social jet lag, everybody is doing it. Everybody is at a certain, level of performance Monday to Friday. And then the weekend it's like, hey, you guys, points, right? And particularly in Ireland, as you know. So people think they can work hard and they can play hard. Come here, I have a drink. I enjoy a drink every now and again with my friends. But don't smash it like I did when I was 20. Like I'm 40 next month, whatever. Anyway, point being is, it is okay to have a drink every now and again and go off, but it's the 2 or 3 days that roll over. It's the dietary intervention that you do. So we call it 5-2-0, 5 days clean, 2 days off, 0 results. So you're going to get nowhere with that. Now, there's a longevity in that, and I do think people should have their night off, or they have a meal out, or they might have a few drinks. But the next day, they have to undo the negative effect. One, they wake up at the same time. If they want to go back for a nap later on the day, they can. But they need to keep their sleep hygiene and sleep routine, because those workers need to know what time the factory opens. The factory can't open at 9 o'clock one day, 12 o'clock the next day, 3 o'clock the next day. No, nothing's going to get done. And then you're always getting by. Getting by isn't good enough. You need to be striving, you have an optimal health. And for that to happen, we need to know when we're going to bed and when we're waking up. And in my opinion, one of the things that people, the most important alarm clock to set is the one to go to bed, not the one to get up. And that's what people focus on. And I talk a lot about how to get people's routines organized in the morning. Doing it at night time is too little, too late. The hormonal cascade is like trying to stop a tsunami with a surfboard. It's not going to happen. So you need to set the stage in the morning. So then you have that sort of wind down at night time, and then you constantly do it. But the points the weekend, look, they can happen every now and again, but you need to control it. You need to watch and maybe do some intermittent fasting, at the weekend. And that's another thing that I have a major issue with. A lot of people out there recommend an intermittent fasting. So there's only one key hormone in the body that brings blood sugar down, and that's insulin. And then we've got 5 hormones that bring blood sugar up again. We've glucagon, we've cortisol, we've adrenaline, we've noradrenaline, we've human growth hormone. They all bring it back up again. So if you're asking somebody that has already poured cortisol to intermittent fast in the morning, you're putting more stress on their plate. So if you want that person to balance the cortisol, make them have dinner, finish their dinner by maybe 6 or 7 o'clock at night time. And that will have a much better effect on the body, from a sleep, from a digestive, from a repair, from a detox, from a circadian clock resetting, and then that will really help them. There's things, they're called outside environmental influences. They're called zeitgebers. And zeitgebers are stimulants to our body to tell us what time it is. So light, food, activity, they all tell the body, be awake, be awake. So when you went to Australia, it was about you getting into the time zone of the country that you're in. So even your phone, the minute you turn on your phone, you hooked it up to an Aussie network and bang, you're on the right time. That's what we need. Now, we're not as fast as a mobile phone, but we need the stimulation. But if you're not waking in the morning and your body's like, feed me, wake me up, feed me, wake me up, you're like going, now you're all right there, boss. I want to lose a bit of weight. I'm going to eat in 6 hours. I understand that intermittent fasting can be very beneficial. But if we use the analogy of your car, if I brought you all the way over from Dublin, worked you really hard in Dublin, trained you up, and then all of a sudden sent you to Australia, which is a stress in itself, and then said, here's intermittent fasting, you're like going, listen, let me get over what just happened here. Let me, and maybe on your journey over, you had a bit of a party time, as people do, and so you need to deal with the car that you have. So intermittent fasting can be very beneficial at the right stage. But if you've got circadian clock dysfunction, you've got compromised adrenals, and you've got a low car in the morning, intermittent fasting is a terrible thing to do. Yes, it's lower in calories. Yes, it's easy to do, but so is drinking petrol. Well, I'm not going to do that. So.
Brilliant. And someone gets to the stage like we talked about where they may have got all these saliva cortisol tests. Now, obviously, some execs that we train and some type A personalities, they're not going to be meditating every day and going to yoga class every day. So what realistic strategies are you putting into your client's plan to lower cortisol or regulate that throughout the day?
Right, so first thing I do is, execs, in my opinion, don't like to be told anything. They don't like to be told anything. So what I say to them is, okay, look, so we have these 5 things that we need to do to make a health bank account lodgement: proteins, fats, and carbs, vitamins and minerals, water, air, sleep. We got all these. Well, what one do you think that you could improve in? So I put it on to them. Do you think you're drinking enough water? Well, no. How much do you think you should drink? 2 liters. Well, how are you going to drink the 2 liters? Well, I'll put a bottle on my desk and I'll make sure it's finished by the end of the day. Oh, I didn't say anything. They've said it. Okay, so that's one thing. But then what about your sleep? Give yourself a percentage out of 100% in your sleep. What's it like? At 60%. Why? I don't go to bed on time. Why? I'm doing this on the phone and this and this. Okay, well, what would you be willing to do? I'll go to bed at 12. I don't want people going to bed at 12, but if they made a decision to go to bed at 12, they're more likely. So I sort of have a little bit of a little coaching session with them, but implementations that they can come up with. Like, this is the thing, Sean. Clients know. They know what to do. And I'll be honest, our job, as clever as we think we are, we're just accountability coaches. That's all we are. We're people that stand beside someone, do more reps, lift heavier weights, follow this food, look after your lifestyle, do this, do that. But people, in the heart to heart, know that what we're doing is trying to help them. But it's the accountability, it's that overseeing, it's the motivation, it's the encouragement that we give people. So that's one thing I do. Next thing I do is Murphy's Law. What can go wrong does go wrong at the worst possible time. I ask them, what can you see going wrong to knock you off the track? And they're like, well, nothing. Really? Would you be sitting here in front of me paying me money to be your coach if nothing knocks you off track? Well, when I travel, okay, well, let's build up a travel plan. Or when I get home and I haven't eaten and the kids are there, okay, well, let's come up with a plan for that. So you coach them so they can instill the techniques and the tips in their lifestyle. And the second thing we do is we build a contingency plan. Well, what happens if shit hits the fan? Like how often do you order food when you go home? At least 4 nights a week I order takeaway. Okay, fine. Show me all the takeaway menus and sit down and go through them. Say, okay, you can have a takeaway maximum twice a week. How does that sound? Oh, that's very easy. I thought you were going to say none. But then it's a lot easier to go from 2 to none than it is 4 to none. So work with them. So for me, it's about getting the client engaged in the journey. I'm not a food Nazi. I don't kill people when it comes to stuff like that. But what I want to do is I want to build a plan for them. I want to build a plan that's maintainable and doable. And that's the MD principle I learned from Jose Antonio. You need to give someone a plan that they can follow, that they feel they've been involved in, that it's been personalized for them. Like I had one guy, he was a chauffeur for a sports athlete that I was training. And the athlete said, look, do me a favor and just give Tomo a talk there about nutrition, whatever. So he comes into me and he drank 5 liters of Diet Coke a day. I'm like, Tomo, what are you doing? For God's sake. He says, wait, it gets worse. So how does it get worse? He says, I'll bite him at night time. I leave them in the car so they go warm and flat. I like it warm and flat. I'm like, yeah, madman. So my recommendation to him was 3 cans of Diet Coke a day. Like if any other trainer or nutritionist see me recommending 3 cans of Diet Coke a day, it'd kill me. But is it better than 5 liters? For sure it is. So you need to meet people where they're at. You need to, and this is the thing, people are reaching for sugar, they're reaching for carbs because they're adrenally compromised, because that cortisol is causing that wave of blood sugar, and we know we need to feed the brain. So, and if I put someone on a very low carb diet, which I would not do for an adrenally compromised person, putting someone on a very low carb diet is an additional stress. I would put them on what I call a controlled or a cycled carbohydrate diet, where they'd have carbs at certain meals once the activity levels are of the optimal level. But when it comes to food, you need to complement someone's metabolic rate with their food. And that's something that you do together as a team, you know?
Excellent. And in regard, we've looked at some of the lifestyle stuff, but a big thing I see with clients is in regards training, where it's the popularity of real high intensity classes, or whether it's the person who's had a long day and they're going to try run their stress away.
Yeah.
How do you regulate people's training, or how do you look at that with, again, the big rise of high intensity stuff, which can add on to that?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. So we're really, what are we now? I think I'm 3 or 4 weeks open after this lockdown. And first of all, a lot of people have a misunderstanding of high intensity interval training and intensity training. Most people, what they think is high intensity is high density. Like a lot of work with short rest, is not high intensity interval training, first of all. People get a misunderstanding when it comes to that. But if you do high intensity interval training or interval training in general, it's very adrenally compromised, massively. Next of all, I've done loads of bloods over the last 3 weeks of clients that were in lockdown doing home workouts and Zoom workouts and group fitness classes. Their testosterone, their cortisol, everything is compromised. So when you go to the gym or you train, there should be a goal of what you're looking to do. Looking to increase muscle mass, drop body fat, improve strength and certain lifts. But people go in and all their goal is to get sweaty. And if your goal is just to go to the gym and get sweaty, there's loads of things you can do to get sweaty. But going in, getting your heart rate up and getting a sweat on, if you don't take into consideration the muscles that you're activating, the joints that you're activating, you get an accumulation. And this accumulation over sessions will wear the body down. Every time you exercise, and this goes for every activity, every time you exercise, you're digging a hole. Every single time. And the bigger the hole you dig, the harder it is to get out of it. But these people are training full body, snatches and cleans and running and this and that. They're getting a huge overload of stress. They're digging a big hole, and they're not robust and resilient enough to get out of the hole again before they start training again. And then they come and see me and say, "Oh, I'm training 7 times a week, 10 times a week. I'm not losing weight. Why? Because you're down a hole, you know?" So, and this other thing, when it comes to, in my opinion, a lot of times people participate in exercise and they don't know why. Like if you participate in exercise for a sport, like I've got MMA guys and jiu-jitsu guys and wrestlers and boxers that I tell them to run into the wall, and the only question is how many sets, how many reps. They'll just do it, anything you say to them. And there's other people that are doing it for fun. I've got clients that come to the gym and we don't talk about business, we don't talk about family, we don't talk about religion or politics. They come, it's their hour of mindfulness and they go. They lift a bit of weight. So when people are going to the gym, if they want to just go and clear their air, clear their head and just think about something else, they could do yoga, they do Tai Chi, Pilates, saunas, they could do any of that stuff. They could do, we have a float tank underneath me here, we have a float center. They could use Normatex to do something else. But running to clear your brain is okay every now and again. If you're running every single day, that's going to wear in the body. It's been shown that the more you run, the more aerobic exercise you do above an hour, it causes quite a lot of compromise, good permeability, increases cortisol. So there's all these other issues that you need to take into consideration. And this is the thing about cardio. Everyone does cardio. The day you stop doing cardio is the day you die. So people say, "No, I need to do my heart and lungs." You do a 10 by 10, or you do 3 sets of 20 squats. Breathing through your ears, So people think they need to do running all the time. Like the heart and the lungs, and this is a pet hate of mine, the heart and the lungs do not activate any muscle. They don't. They're purely delivery mechanisms. They're oxygen of blood to the particular area, and the enzymatic function of the muscle is what dictates the adaptation. So let's say you're a good runner or you're a good boxer. We start doing jiu-jitsu and you'd be dead in 3 minutes. You know, I could be great on the bike, you stick me in the rower and I'm dead. So fitness is all muscle specific. It's not lung and heart only, you know. So I think a cross training approach where you maybe do some lower body days, maybe some upper body days, you do some correct high intensity interval training, and maybe a long run on the weekend is ideal. But one thing that I've seen consistently in all burnout people is I ask them, what do you do to recover? And they tell me, I go out for dinner, or I have a rest day. A rest day isn't a recovery day. A rest day is an off day. You need to do some active recovery, a pool session, slow walking, a massage, a sauna, something that you do, but that has to be in there. And you walk into any gym and you see the guys in their mobility and they're stretching. Why? Because they were injured. All the bulletproof 20-year-olds in the corner are jumping onto the chin up bar the minute they walk into the gym floor. So I think people don't take their mobility, corrective exercise, program splits into consideration until there's an issue. And that's where us as coaches have to intervene and say, no, to have longevity, to have success in this industry and for your health journey, we need to prioritize splitting the routine up, or we just do 2 weeks of full body training, then we go back to split routine again, because I know you're challenged in your job or whatever it is that we need to do this.
And are you using like HRV, which you mentioned, with your clients, and the fact that if it's real low that day, okay, you may do something more low intensity or restorative? Are you using those mechanisms as well?
Yeah, so we used to use HRV for really everybody. I gave Oura rings out. We had jawbones bands that we gave out for a long time. Now, all my clients will have a HRV application that we can use at certain times. I don't do it all the time for the athletes. Leading up to competition, we use it, but sometimes I find it gets into some guys' psyche, so I had to take it out. But we have some components of it all the time in the gym. But body composition, weight, edema, mood, concentration. And this is another thing. When you train in the gym, if you're doing a glycogen depletion program or a hypertrophy program, you should get a pump. If you don't get a pump in a muscle, it's an indication that there wasn't glycogen in there in the first place. And in order for you to have glycogen in a muscle, there's a multitude of factors, like glycogen synthase, recovery, and rest that needs to be there. So you have a client come to the gym, do set 1 perfect, set 2 perfect, set 3, bang, they've hit a brick wall. That's an early warning sign, you know. If someone hasn't got a pop in their step, they're a bit flat, we do corrective stuff. We might do a little bit of cardio, a bit of mobility, and off they go. You know, so, and that's the thing. Clients don't need to say, oh, you don't have to smash clients every single day. There needs to be, as Luke Lehman says, you have least mode and beast mode. I think it's a very nice way of putting it. But moving and getting into the gym is important.
Yeah, I like the way he puts that as well.
Yeah.
And the last kind of thing, we've touched on a few things, high kind of cortisol, increasing cravings and other stuff. Someone trying to lose fat, they may overlook this part of the regime in regards, I don't care about stress. I'm going to smash my pre-workouts. I'm going to kill myself. I'm just counting my calories. How do you find this fits into the whole fat loss model, where it's getting lean or it's sustaining it?
So I have an issue when it comes to the calorie model. I think the calorie model definitely works, 100% works, but not for everybody. And I think if you only have one approach, and that's the only approach you're going to take. So I honestly find that the calorie model, the calorie deficit works for 80% of the people. But the 20% of the people that don't get results are the people that I see. I get the executives, I get the people that are burnt out, I get the people with low thyroid function, poor adrenal function, that are on 1,200 calories and still not losing weight. So for me, I think it definitely a calorie deficit in essence is from a mathematical standpoint, definitely will work. But if your car needs a service, doesn't matter how much fuel I put into it or don't put into it, it's not going to go anywhere. So I do believe for 80% of the people, a calorie deficit will work if their car is already humming and running fine. But a lot of people that I get, their metabolism, their hormonal system, their detoxification, their sleep is all messed up. That's what I address. In conjunction, obviously, with some sort of calorie deficit, it's not going to be in a surplus. However, one of the key components that I find with a lot of these stress executives is they're not efficient fat burners. So when a client comes to see you and they're overweight, well, they're not efficient fat burners, they're efficient fat accumulators. So by purely just giving someone a calorie deficit, the body became very efficient at bringing down their metabolic rate to maintain their muscle mass, to maintain their fat mass. So for me, stuff like carnitine is vital. If you are deficient in carnitine, which needs methylation in order to make it, it needs the consumption of red meat for you to absorb it, and it needs a proper digestion. So there's a multitude of factors there that if they aren't in place, you're not going to ultimately burn fat. So these people come in, they're carnitine deficient, they're magnesium deficient, they're coenzyme Q10 deficient, and they're not able to actually use that fat as fuel in the body. So in order, we want to light the fire, and we have the fuel there, we have the situation, but we need to ignite it. And a lot of times people aren't addressing those key components. So for me, a lot of times it's getting the 5 key things right, and then maybe with the vitamins and minerals, you might need to add in a bit more. But the calorie model, I think, it is important, but it's not the be all and end all. And those people that I've seen, and again, coaches out there that are doing this more regularly, me doing all these transformations, I enjoy them. People rebound fast. And then I get a guy coming to me saying, oh, I was getting ready for a photo shoot or a transformation, and now I do the exact same diet and my body doesn't respond at all. I'm not getting lean, my joints are sore, uric acid is up, I've got brain fog, I'm thinking about doing testosterone to help me get through it. And then it just gets,
Definitely the unsexy components of fat loss. You can't really put that on social media, can you? No one responds to that rather than a shirtless pic. And the last thing, obviously you're a big fan of getting blood tests to actually see what's going on, but from just dealing with people, what are kind of the 3 main things people will be deficient in?
Well, obviously it's going to be different in Ireland than it is in Australia. So vitamin D is a big issue in Ireland. So that's something that we address. And vitamin D is, again, it's a hormone. So that's a major issue that I find. Magnesium is another thing that tends to be deficient for a lot of people. And on the road, when someone comes to see me, they've normally done a number of things beforehand. When you go on a low-carb diet is a low magnesium diet. So not only do we need magnesium to burn fat, but we really only get magnesium from carb. Tend to filter stuff out correctly is another option. So mainly vitamin D and magnesium, and then it will depend on the person. However, I will say one thing: women are terrible. Oh my Jesus, women are brutal. They're nearly every woman that's ever came to see me in the clinic was anemic. So their iron is low, their ferritin is low, their MCV was low, their hemoglobin was low. They're like, it's grand. No, it's not okay. If you don't deliver oxygen to the cells of the body, think about all those factories. If we can't give power to those factories, nothing can do its job. Nothing. If you're having a heavy menstrual cycle every month, if you're not eating red meat, you're not eating enough of the vitamins that you need, you're going to be anemic straight off the bat. And what a lot of these people do is they go on a low calorie deficit. Every diet that is low in calories is low in micronutrients. Fact, it has to be. It's just the way it works. Next thing is, if you're having a heavy menstrual cycle, you're losing a lot of blood every single month. Next, they're not consuming red meat because they don't feel it sits well in the belly. And then they're running. Every time you run, you break down thousands of millions of hemoglobin. So then your production is compromised, your destruction is increasing, your losses every month. So it's very hard to get an anemic woman, not only energetic, but also to lose weight. So that's one of the things that we address with women, for whatever reason, put everybody else first, the kids and the husband and the job, everyone else first, and then they're falling to shit. The simple thing of addressing anemia can have profound effect. Like, I'm sure you've been hungover in the past, yeah? So when you're hungover, everything is difficult. If you're running, if you're going through life with anemia, where you're managing low oxygen delivery to the cells of your body, you're running on 30% of what you possibly could, and everything else is impacted by that.
Unreal. And this is me telling Owen to dumb it down. Last question I have on this. Obviously, we don't want to be the psychological component of stress is massive as well, and we'll differentiate between different personalities. And we probably don't want to get caught up in the thing being getting stressed about being stressed. So what are like little psychological components would you tell people, whether it's to deal with stress, or do you have any tips that way that you'll give people?
Yeah, so this is the thing. Stress can manifest in very different ways. So in my family, normally when we get stressed out, I might feel it in my gut. I might feel it in my stomach. I don't feel it right. Other people, they'll drink more. Other people, they'll sleep more. Other people, they'll sleep less. So stress can manifest in different ways. But honestly, what I find works really well for a lot of people is when you can perceive or expect the stress, you can manage it much better. When you're prepared for it, you're much better. So if you write down all the possible things that could go wrong, I'm not saying the whole list, but a few things that could derail you. If you have identified them, you're more easier to slip them. You know, you're not going to be so shocked back when you come back. The healthier you are, the fitter you are, the more you sleep, the more robust and resilient you are. Now, my dad has a great quote: "You never learn any younger." So in life, shit will come at your door, whether it be kids, whether it be, you know, mortgage or losing your job or this whole lockdown situation. There's certain things you can change, there's certain things you can't change, but your reaction to stuff you can change. You either respond to a situation or you react. And the problem is when you constantly react, that's when the body is not being prepared. But if you can make yourself as flexible and resilient as possible and give yourself some like meditation. For me, I'm not a big airy fairy guy, but I do meditate every day. I use an app called Calm. And even if it just quiets my brain down for a few minutes, it can be quite beneficial. But when shit hits the fan, stress, like public speaking is something that I never really had a problem with because I was thrown into it at a very young age. Where other people, apparently it's the number one worst fear is public speaking. So underneath being dead. So people prefer to be, you know, in the coffin and giving a eulogy at a funeral. I think it's crazy. But the fact is, when you can start to identify where your areas of stress are and then build up a coping mechanism, that's what the focus is. But not preparing it, not taking it on board, and then being surprised when stuff doesn't go your way, that's just silly. But in every job you do, there's areas that you can control. Control the controllable. Get rid of the stuff you don't need to deal with, and the rest of the stress, build up your stress resilience. But there's a lot of stuff that people are doing that they don't need. I know if I said to you right now, what parts of stress could you get out of your life? You could, and I'm sure you've got 2 or 3 clients, or 3 or 4 clients are like, oh, this person is an energy vampire. We all know these people, and there's certain parts of your job, like maybe your accounts or whatever it is, that drain you. Pay someone to do it. You know, so there's certain stuff that you can pass on, you can delegate to somebody else. There's certain things that you need to do it, or you need to suck it up and say, well, that's not something I'm going to do anymore. You know, so for me here in the gym, I'm not taking on any more clients. I'm trying to focus on getting the staff back up to full speed. So I'm not going to be taking more people on because I need to work on the business. It's not something that I wanted to necessarily do, but you have to be flexible in this job to change things. You know, the same way when I go to some gyms, all they do is powerlifting. Everything is powerlifting, and that's okay. But if a client comes in and they don't want powerlifting, well, they just powerlift. So you need, and your gym and cardio and bodybuilding, Olympic lifting, everything, exercise should be open to everybody, and it should be suited towards someone's goals, ability, and where they want to go. But I feel when it comes to a stress management point of view, get rid of what you can get rid of, delegate what you don't want to do as much as you can, and then improve your own body's internal resilience to manage the stress when it comes your way. But by identifying where it possibly could come from, it will allow you to have that contingency plan so you don't get knocked off the derailers. A friend of mine, Enda McNulty, he wrote a book a number of years ago. I contribute towards it. It's called Commit. But he talks about ants and cats. Most of the time when we're in a situation, we have what's called an ant, an automatic negative thought. Oh, I couldn't do that. Or I can't do that. Or I can't lose weight. Where if we look back and look at what the cats are, the confident, affirming thoughts. Well, you've done really well. This is the thing. In your clients' jobs, they've reached a huge level in their job. Like they're managing millions. They're managing hundreds of staff. They have enough money to pay. I couldn't afford to pay for a trainer. They can afford to pay for a trainer and do all they do and travel and eat out. So they've achieved huge amount of things in their life. So, and it took a long time to get there. So what I try to say to them is, I want you to get to the same level of performance in your job as you have in your health. But it's going to take the same time. If a girl or a guy started in your office and in 3 months' time they're above you, you'd be freaked out because they need to put the graft in. So it's the same thing for you. If you want to be fit and healthy and at 50 or whatever age you want to be at and enhance your health, we need to put in the groundwork. And that involves you working every single day at it. So I think, and linking it like that it needs to start every single day, identify the stressors and set the stage. I think you're giving your clients a roadmap to success and a realistic one at that. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, great analogy. And it's funny in the fact that if someone did apply all those gems that you actually talk about, the results would be absolutely life changing to someone's overall performance and health without even having to pay us. You just have to apply any of that.
And this is the stuff, and like information is out there, and I think it's really good now with the internet and podcasts and YouTube. You can get a lot of good quality information. The only issue that I have with the information is I really feel it needs to be always changed to suit somebody. So I was chatting to a guy last week, and he has candida and thrush and so on, and he's constantly eating blueberries. I told him that there was yeast and mold and blueberries and fructose supports that. He was going on these special diets that he learned online. So sometimes, in my opinion, if your car is rattling, the smoke coming from it, don't go onto YouTube. Bring it to a garage. Don't we'll sort this out. No. Wheel will fall off. And so there's certain times, and obviously I'm biased, I say go to see a professional, but there is certain times you need that,
Yeah, 100%. World class on. And Eoin is out here not only dealing with gyms back home, but you have all your coaching education online.
Yeah, so I was traveling. I was traveling the whole time teaching for different organizations. I used to teach for Charles Poliquin and for many years. I traveled to Australia a lot teaching. The last time I was in Sydney, I was in Cronulla teaching. That was quite fun actually out there. But yeah, so I put all my education now online. It's eoinlacyeducation.com. I've got a mix of courses, some for trainers from a hypertrophy point of view, from a program design, from a semi-private training, of stuff on sleep, of stuff on strength and conditioning, stuff on training corporate athletes. And honestly, this is the thing. I train thousands of coaches all over the place, and coaches all say, "Oh, I want to train athletes." Trust me, guys, and I don't mean to belittle anyone. There's very little money in athletes. And it's so much hard work, and it's so draining. But if that's your passion, go for it, do it, love it. But it's like personal training, lifestyle coaching, health coaching, and S&C coaching are different worlds altogether. So if you learn how to train a corporate athlete, you will always have clients for the rest of your life, and you can make some big impacts on them. And this is the thing. We work it's fairly straightforward maths. You only need about 10 clients to be a very successful coach in this business, particularly if you get into the corporate wellness world. 10 people in a business training 3 to 4 times a week, you're flying, and then it allows you the time to study, to grow, to educate yourself, to surround yourself with positive people. So that's why I wrote so much stuff on corporate performance, that I think these simple things that we're talking about, if you were to instill these week by week, with your corporate clients, not only would you be inundated with more clients, but everyone in the office will be going, "What the hell is Billy doing? He's doing cartwheels in the meeting room. He's holidaying away. He's skiing. Just no more strokes." There's a great book on why dead executives don't get bonuses. But people, they get stressed out, and their health deteriorates, the weight gain, everything happens, marriages fall apart. It's not good. So as coaches, we have a much better position than doctors, because doctors only see someone when shit has hit the fan. Where we're seeing people day in, day out, we can gradually build and get our clients back. I like to call it the health sat nav. We might go off the route, but we know where we're going. We get them back on track every single time. A doctor, yes, they're essential. They're essential on what they do. They're brilliant at what they do, but they're limited in the power and exposure they have to their clients. But we're inundated, and it's up to us, to do the best job we can possible, and to link ourselves with people that may help in other areas if we need to,
Yeah, I definitely attest that corporate stuff you put up is brilliant info, so applicable to people's lives, whether they're a trainer or the actual client themselves. And yeah, for anyone that is first listening to Eoin, it's the funny thing about social media, some smart people out there you've never heard of, unfortunately. But hopefully Eoin's message is getting around through obviously the trainers that he coaches, and he's making an impact that way without having to hit his dopamine receptors with likes every day.
Yeah, I don't. That's one of the things I was lucky enough that I pushed away from social media as it started. Now, the company is on it, obviously have to do that. But if we're in a bar having a drink, that's when I want to have a chat with you and talk to you, and you can show me your pictures on your phone. But I'm not going to be sending pictures. I like my, not privacy, but I like to, I prefer not to be on that stuff. I think it'll drain too much of my time when I'm not on work. I work enough as it is. I don't need to be on the phone when I get home. So, not that I'm against it. It's just not for me.
100%. Eoin, I want to thank you so much. Absolute gem of a podcast. Someone to definitely look up to in the industry. And it's a pleasure having you on, buddy.
No problem at all. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Eoin.